Hey everyone, welcome to a new installment of Shmup Reviewplay. Today I'm doing Blue Revolver, and as you'll notice, there's a new addition to the format where I've decided to add some video. So, based off of the feedback I got from the Shmup vlog I did, where for the hell of it I decided just to throw in some video for that vlog, just because I felt like if I was gonna rant at the camera, I might as well add some video, right? And people were saying, hey, they really like that, so I thought, well, video kind of fits with Shmup Reviewplay too, right? I think it would be a fitting addition. So I'm giving this a try. If people like it, I might try and add video to all the future review plays. If people don't really care, I don't know. I may not. It just all depends. Anyway, so it's been a while since I've done a review play, and in case people aren't aware of the format, because I never think I formally introduced it in my previous review plays, I just kind of jumped in and hoped people assumed or understood what I was going for. But I thought, hey, I might as well officially introduce the video format now to see if it maybe helps people understand it more and catch on a little more. So I think people will notice that the two most popular forms of videos for shmups are reviews, something you'd see on Studio Mudprints, for example, and commentary, SCG Weekly style content. Both are obviously really legit ways of going about things. And it's funny, when I was starting, because I started off with a podcast and doing podcasting content, and then as I got into doing some video content for the YouTube channel, because originally my YouTube channel was just my gameplay stuff, which I think it's important to have out there, but it also wasn't really that useful to kind of alongside with the podcast. But as I just got more into things, I just started doing different stuff. And anyway, so I thought hey, I should do some video content, to complement the podcast, but what would be a good format? And I've done different types of videos, but I always wanted to do kind of a commentary, which I have like on my own runs. I've done commentary videos and stuff. Not a lot of people do those, but I was like, hey, why don't I do kind of some commentary on some other videos, on games? And then I realized, all roads lead back to STG Weekly, and I found like a lot of my content ideas ended up being STG Weekly-ish, like very close to it. I thought, hey, why don't I do kind of a hybrid format then? Because I've also wanted to do reviews, but I don't have the reviewer spirit, of like sitting down, grading it, going over specific things and stuff like that, like Studio Mudprints does. So I thought, hey, why don't I do a combination format where I do a run and I critique not only my own gameplay, but also talk about the game, what I've learned, kind of a all-in-one there. So that's the idea of a review play for the new people out there. So let's talk about Blue Revolver now. So from everyone I've talked to in the shmup community, and it's quite a few people at this point, I have never heard anyone have any kind of critiques or negative feelings towards a Blue Revolver. I would say everyone I've talked to, even the harshest critics, seem to consider Blue Revolver one of the best indie shmups out there right now. And I would definitely agree. I think Blue Revolver is amazing. It's definitely up there among my favorites. I think my top, as far as quality, the ones that kind of strike me that I've played, because there's a lot of indie shmups out there, and some of them I'm sure are extra good too, but the ones that I've played, the three that always come to mind as the best are Crimson Clover, Zero Ranger, well, four, because so Crimson Clover, Zero Ranger, Blue Revolver, and Rolling Gunner. I consider those like the top four, and then Dan 3 just a little bit under them, even though Dan 3 is probably is definitely my most played. But anyway, so of these indie shmups, Blue Revolver has definitely been a favorite of mine, but I've never really achieved any kind of great scores or anything like that. And like I said, I've been holding off on interviewing the dev, so I haven't had a whole lot of opportunity to talk about the game, and other than kind of in passing on the podcast. So I thought this would be a great way to introduce the game to hopefully a wider audience. I'm not the most popular person out there, but hopefully people in the shmup community who've never played Blue Revolver, have never seen it, and this could maybe wet your whistle a little bit. So the mode I'm playing here is the parallel mode. No, sorry, it is the hyper mode, not parallel. And hyper mode is, I would say, difficulty-wise, could be comparable to something like a Toho hard mode, or a Cave 1-all, something like DOJ, or... Yeah, it's easier than Ketsui. Something like DOJ or Mushi, Black Label, DOJ Black Label or Mushi. It's kind of in those difficulty realms, Dodonpachi. But it has a rank system as well, and so yeah, you have to be mindful of that when you're playing because it will whip your ass. So I think Black Label DOJ is a really good comparison to the difficulty. And yeah, by the end of this clear, it had me sweating for sure. So it wasn't a walk in the park by any means. And so coming into this, my strategy was actually to play for low rank. You'll see that's why I'm hardly using any special weapons. As I understand, using special weapons and comboing and all that kind of stuff, doing big cancels, that will raise the rank. And so I kind of took the DOJ Black Label approach of trying to lowball the rank to get through to the late, like lowball the rank in the earliest stages where you're not really going to get that many points anyway. At least that's my assessment, not my, that's not concrete. I'm saying like that's my thinking going into this. And then as we get into the more difficult stages, like I do with DOJ, that's when I start using more hypers, that's when I start jacking up the rank. But at that point, I think I'll have a little cushion of resources to keep the rank under management. So that was my strategy coming into this game. And what's cool about Blue Revolver is I feel like this is just kind of a generalization, okay? But I feel like it's kind of design-wise a hybrid between a cave shmup and a raising shmup, I think, which is really cool. The cave elements are kind of the way the bullet patterns work, the boss fights, all of them feel pretty cave-like, more bullet hell, a mixture of tracked bullets and static bullets. Kind of like this pattern right here. A perfect example, tracked bullets and static bullets. And then also the chaining system's kind of DDP-like a little bit, kind of Ketsui DDP, kind of a mix between those, where you build up your chain, it maxes out at 8, and then you cash out with your special weapons. The interesting part though is the special weapon system and the rank system kind of remind me of a raising game, where the special weapons, so you have a bomb, but then you also have special weapons, and you use those to get score, and it has that kind of Garega loop of you gain score by using special weapons, and then by using special weapons you gain lives, and then by sacrificing lives you gain more special weapons. That cycle system, like M2 described in their video when they're talking about Garega. Now, I'm not an expert in scoring in Blue Revolver, and like I said, I'm lowballing the rank in this run, so this run won't show you that style of gameplay. But there is a really awesome demonstration of this game at Stunfest by Kiwi. And not only is Kiwi destroying the hardest mode of the game, which is parallel mode, and he's the world record holder in Blue Revolver, and his demonstration is absolutely amazing. Just of any shmup demonstrations, let alone Blue Revolver. But what's also cool is that the developer of the game hops on the commentary and commentates it. And so not only are you being entertained by the gameplay, but also by the developer. And he's got a really fun sense of humor. I was definitely entertained. It's not like a really dry, because some devs can be really dry. I've noticed, though, this is an aside, of the shmup devs I've talked to, they all have a sense of humor. They're all pretty charismatic and funny people, which is, I think, maybe just what it takes to be a shmup dev. You have to be kind of, I don't know, you have to be a bit of an artist, right? Whereas, some devs that are not shmup devs that I've tried to contact and work with before, just because I liked their games, they seem to take themselves much more seriously and were more of the typical, like, if you ever saw that indie video game documentary, that one guy where he's like shoving his face into a TV and being all crazy. Yeah. Anyway, So the dude seems really cool, and I'm looking forward to getting him on the podcast to talk about double action, and I'll definitely try and get into the history of Blue Revolver more. So getting back to the game itself, there are two different ship types, Val and Mai. Okay, don't kill me if my pronunciation is off, okay? But Mai's the ship I'm flying, and she's kind of more of your B style in DOJ, or a C style, closer to that, where she has different shot types though, which is cool. So you can choose different ones. So the ships aren't as static as even DDP ships, because you'll have different shot types. So this one's wide, but then you can also use like a Gradius style tracer, or whatever you call them, option style, where they follow you around and stuff. There's definitely a lot of different shot types, and then on top of that, there's different special weapon types. And so talking to Kiwi, the most powerful special weapon type is definitely the cluster missile. And I think the worst one, just in my own experience, is the defense shield. And then the spears. I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm getting the names incorrect, but I always make little nicknames for everything I play. The spears, or whatever, the lances, actually, I think they're fire lances. I think they're kind of medium-ish good. And then the special weapon I'm using here, I think, is the second best one, I think, based on when I was looking at the rankings and just on my own gameplay. And it's like the DDP laser, look at that. So I was like, well, I'm a DDP player. It seems like a fitting choice, so I was using the laser. When I'm going for the parallel clear though, I'm going to use the cluster missile, just because, to give myself that little extra edge. So what's really fun about Blue Revolver, if you haven't noticed yet, is that the level design, the stage layout, and the bullet formations are really superbly done. They're really well thought out, and I'll explain what makes them so good. So when it comes to shmups, especially, non-Japanese shmups, I guess you could say, I'm trying to avoid, what term, you guys know what term I'm trying to avoid. But anyway, non-Japanese developed independent shmups, there's some things that they can fall into that make them, in my opinion, pretty bad, pretty shitty. The first one is if they have really static level design, really static enemy design, where you just kind of, if you can just sit in the middle and kind of wiggle back and forth and get through most of the stage without much trouble, and that's a lot of it. Or if they're like really old school, where like the enemies just fly in these really perfect lines, and then you can just move there, shoot them, move them, shoot them, and it's very boring and robotic, something like in Gradius. I'm not a big fan of that style design, but you'll notice with the level design in Blue Revolver is it's much more cave-like, raising-like, where the idea is to keep you moving on the side of the screens at all times. So you can never get comfortable, you can never just sit in the middle of the screen and wiggle back and forth, whether it's in a boss fight, whether it's in the enemy fights, or in the levels. You're always moving left to right, up, down, you're always having to assess the patterns. It's just really dynamic, and that's what makes a good shmup, in my opinion. Is it must keep you on your toes at all times. It must keep you pushing at all times, with a little bit of downtime here and there to get, catch a breath, but most of the time you're just pushing forward. Yeah, so, and the boss fights in this game are really fun. And I think what makes this game a little more accessible than a cave game, or even a raising game, and I think when people ask, hey, I want to get into shmups, what should be the first shmup that I really get into? I think Blue Revolver has a lot of reasons to be chosen for that, over even stuff like, I used to kind of think about DFK as being that shmup, right? Of, hey, you're new to shmups, DFK is a great intro shmup. The problem with DFK, though, is it has some very cave-esque issues with some of the level design, where you basically have to know beforehand what you're getting into. Stage 5 is definitely like that. And also, DFK is a lot more complicated than most shmups as far as the way the weapon systems work. And for instance, like those big purple lasers. When I first played DFK, I had no idea you had a laser to protect yourself. And so there's just a lot of little issues like that that make it kind of hard to recommend to new shmup players. But what's great about Blue Revolver is that the game design and the gameplay is very pure and very fundamental, I would say. And what I mean by that is in Blue Revolver, you can actually, if you're a really good player, you probably could beat Parallel or Hyper Mode and maybe even Parallel Mode with just a few tries if you were really good at shmup fundamentals. So if you're like Jamers, basically, where you're just really good at dodging and quickly assessing patterns and quickly picking up on how a game works. Because the level design in Blue Revolver doesn't really have that cave-like level design where, especially Second Loop Cave, where you have to know the level in extreme detail to even try to survive, otherwise you get pinned. Blue Revolver's not like that. You don't get pinned. Instead, it just pressures you and keeps pressuring you. And I think that makes it really fun. So even if you're not playing Blue Revolver seriously to, try and get world record scores or anything, I think it's a really good game to not only play for score, not only play seriously, but also like to play as kind of a backup game after playing a bunch of Dodonpachi and repeating chains for hours on end over and over, like to keep yourself from going absolutely insane. I'll sometimes end my sessions playing some Blue Revolver where I'm just dodging stuff and it feels really good. So that's what I really like about the game's level design and what makes it, I think, a really good intro game to the genre. Not only that, but it has all the features that I think it's just like basically on paper the perfect indie shmup. There's really no flaws with it, and let me explain. Not only is the gameplay really solid, but the features, it's complete. It has all the features it needs. So it has not only like little extra content, like it has extra missions, it also has training mode. It has really good training options. It has a continue system that forces you to learn the game, so you can't just credit feed your way through. You have to earn your credits and stuff. It has bonus material you can unlock. So this ship color I'm playing here is actually unlocked through gameplay. You get coins and you unlock stuff. I think that's really cool. I know Cave kind of did some of that with SDOJ, so yeah, I think that's a really cool thing I think more shmups should look into. It has extra features, so it has these training missions. Did I mention that? Okay. And then also, the big one, it has a replay system, and it has an online leaderboard system. So it's basically got everything. The only thing it could possibly have that it doesn't is something that not even indie shmups are doing right now, which is something I'm just putting out there, maybe for Double Action or maybe for the indie devs out there to think about, is to do some kind of really in-depth checkpoint system. So this one has a really good checkpoint system too, where you can go to the beginning of the stage, the mid-boss, or the boss. That's way better than most training modes. Basically, that's the top of the line training mode. The only thing I think, which hasn't been done, which could be really cool, is if they added a checkpoint system where like each stage had 7 or 8 checkpoints, and then at the checkpoint you can manipulate what your chain is, you can manipulate what your rank is, and so you could basically do everything possible to approximate what a save state would function like without having to program in save states, because I'm sure that would be, I don't know, maybe you could, if you could just straight up program in save states, I think that would be the best, but if you couldn't, you could maybe approximate them with this checkpoint system. I think that would be really good. But anyway, it's got it all. It's got all the features. Then it has a killer soundtrack, which I'm sure you guys are hearing. And then it has unlockable bonus, arrange stuff. The game's really fairly priced. I mean, it's just got it going on. It's got everything. And so it's definitely, as far as a review aspect of this video, it's an 11 out of 10. You need to own this game. If you're a shmup player, you need to own it. And so, yeah, so there's that. So let's talk about some of the other things that I definitely stand out to me about Blue Revolver that I think are worth pointing out. The first one is the bullet design. So I think I've mentioned this on Discord a few times, but I don't know if I've mentioned it too much on the podcast or in my other videos, but I actually have a problem with visual acuity where my eyes really aren't that good, and one eye is much stronger than the other, where basically I'd be like half blind if my good eye went bad. And so what happens is, because I have that problem, my eyes fatigue really hard, and so with certain shmups, Battle Garega is a really good one, I can almost not play them for more than an hour or so before my eyes fatigue and I stop seeing the bullets. I can't see the bullets anymore. And it's not just Battle Garega, there are some cave shmups and stuff like in DDP in stage 6 with those little pink bullets, those really thin ones. Or other shmups where the bullet design isn't super, like, super visible. Like, there's this one shmup which I give a low score to. 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, a really low score to. Shikondo Soul Eater. I know some people really like that, but I think the game's actually really shitty. And part of it, there's a lot of reasons why, but one of the reasons why is because the bullets blend into the background, because they decided, let's make the backgrounds of certain stages the same color as the bullets. So sometimes I can't see the bullets at all. But the cool thing about Blue Revolver, which I'm getting at here, is that the way he colors the bullets is really helpful to me, because not only do they stand out from the background, but they have this little subtle flashing effect, so it's not too distracting, but this small flashing effect on them so that they are much easier to track if your eyes, with your eyes. And so it makes the game that much more comfortable for me to play. So again, another reason why I can play it after a ton of time playing DDP where my eyes start to hurt is, hey, I can play Blue Revolver and I don't have to strain my eyes as much because I can actually see the bullets. So I really appreciate that he made that addition. Just did everything he could to make the bullets stand out, because I think that's something more shmup should do. And I know, like, aesthetically, some, developers, I'm sure the Garega people, for instance, they want the aesthetics of the bullets to be a certain way, but gameplay-wise, I think there should always be the option to at least toggle some kind of bright-ass bullet mode for people with visual problems, because otherwise we can't really play your shmup. So I really appreciate the way the bullets work. And they kind of have this cool kind of glassy reflective ones, like these blue ones you see here. They have a cool kind of glassy reflective quality that I really like. So the bullet coloring and bullet shapes and design I really like. Speaking of the shapes, another aspect of the bullets that I really like in this game is that all the bullets in their hitboxes make sense and are intuitive. And that's kind of a duh, but you'd be surprised how many shmups, even really good ones, have some pretty nonsensical hitboxes compared to sprites on their bullets. But Blue Revolvers, they're basically perfect. They're exactly how you'd expect them to be. But even in something like Dodonpachi, DOJ, those rectangular blue bullets, just the straight up rectangles, those have the silliest hitboxes ever, where they have this huge back hitbox, so you can dodge the front of the bullet and it'll still get you from the back. None of that goes on. So those kind of glassy spears in Blue Revolver, they don't have big ass hitboxes that extend outside the sprite, which, thank God. Another thing in DDP that drives me crazy with the bullets is, the big chunky popcorn ones. So those have massive hitboxes on them, which makes sense based on their sprite. Except on Hibachi. I guess the developers thought they would play a trick on you. And so on Hibachi, randomly those bullets have much smaller hitboxes than they do in the rest of the game, which is just obnoxious as shit. And once I realized that, it made dodging a lot of his patterns a lot more easy. But anyway, Blue Revolver doesn't pull any of the kind of stuff like that. All the bullets and their hitboxes make sense. Another cool thing, let me talk about this pattern here. Oh no, not this pattern, the next one. Anyway, another cool thing about the way the game's designed is like I said before, it has a really nice combination of fixed and aimed bullet patterns. That's something in Toho that I think, it's a hallmark of how Toho works, so I'm not going to say it's a flaw or anything, but one thing about Tahoe that makes it less fun for me sometimes is that some of the games have really static bullet patterns, you know? So I think Blue Revolver is kind of a nice middle ground between that. And the bullets aren't... Well, when you get in parallel mode, these bullets can get pretty fucking fast, so... Yeah, it kind of gives you a mixture of high speeds, low speeds. Just well-rounded, gameplay-wise. So there's some creative bullet patterns here, and I found a trick to the one, I think it's this one here, let's take a look. Yes, so this bullet pattern looks nasty as shit, and it's really hard, but there is a trick to it, which I will implement now. So if you stay underneath that ball, you can seal its bullets earlier, see? So if you get under, that's a little tip that I found. If you get underneath it directly, it'll seal its bullets earlier. But if you try and dodge it from the side, it'll keep firing and basically trap you and kill you. So this is just a pattern that tests patience for me. But once you find that out, it's a lot easier. So when I first was playing Blue Revolver this day that I got the clear, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to want to keep my rank low, so I won't use any special weapons. So I actually tried to do a no special weapons clear of hyper mode here, and I actually got really far. It's on my stream, just in one of my stream bids. I got really far considering, but I've realized that the big drawback of doing that is if you don't use special weapons on the bosses, the fights can go on for a really long time, like an extra cycle or two, if not more, than if you just nail them with the special weapon. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of a middle ground where I'll use the special weapons on large enemies and bosses and such, but don't use them for scoring. So the score of this fight is pretty low. Oh shit, I forgot. So this is the final attack of the final boss. I'm down to one bomb, no extends, so this is where I was having some flashbacks of Hibachi. The Hibachi final attack, but I was like, okay, I got this. Just save that bomb. Because you can, once the pattern goes on long enough, it'll start to throw kind of a change up to where it'll push you into a corner. There, see, it pushes you into a corner. But I had the bomb. So now I just have to hang in there. Really cool final attack. So since I'm playing hyper mode, there is not a TLB, but if you play parallel mode, there is one. And so this is me. Why is the game paused? It's because I pulled up the Twitch chat and was like, hell yeah. I don't think I had any viewers. It was really late. But yeah, so I got the clear. Yeah, let me think of any final comments. If you don't have Blue Revolver, if you haven't played Blue Revolver, definitely get it. It's one of the best indie shmups out there. What was really cool is when I interviewed Araska, a Japanese super player, I asked him, hey, do you guys pay attention to the indie Western shmups, you know, like Zero Ranger, Blue Revolver? And he said yes, they are aware of them and they actually hold them in high regard, so that's really cool. So yeah, I submitted that run to the leaderboard. It's pretty low, but I was looking through the leaderboard, there wasn't, like, I wouldn't say a hyper mode clear is rare or anything, but it wasn't super common either, so I was happy to kind of add my name to the list of people who cleared hyper mode. So my Blue Revolver journey isn't completely over, but I decided before I start playing for score, I'm going to try and get a parallel mode clear, and I'm trying to do that before the double action interview. That way I have some, knowledge of I would say some considerable knowledge of the game, and show I'm a legitimate player of Blue Revolver before I do the interview. So yeah, thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in. Have a good one.